Welcome to the Chris Collinsworth podcast. I promise Chris Collinsworth is going to be on this podcast. He had more important things to do, though, than he's kind of a busy man. I'm not sure if you've heard about the Sunday Night Football game this weekend, but he had to jump. And so I'm filling in to tell you about what's going to be on the podcast today. I'm actually going to be on it. We're going to start off and we're going to talk a little betting for this week and hit on some of the bigger games, some of the player props that you might want to cash in on. That'll be a lot of fun. Then Doug Kyed, one of PFF's national reporters, is going to be on. He used to be a beat reporter for the New England Patriots. So all things Brady Belichick, that is a awesome conversation. I'm going to actually listen to it again because there are a few things that I missed there. Get you prepped for that big game. And then Ari Meirov, who's our other PFF reporter, and he talks a little bit more about the league as a whole, as well as the things that he is keying in on the Brady Belichick battle this weekend. So we start off with me, then you get to the good stuff. This is the Chris Collinsworth podcast. It's going to be a lot of fun.
Joining us now as we break down all games from a gambling perspective is PFF's own guru of the gambling market,
Sure.
George Chahrouri. And how are you, man?
I'm doing well. I don't
know why I ask how you are. Your office is right next to mine.
Yeah, you could just pop over, but I have to come all the way down here.
You're so loud in that office, though. You're always doing radio shows all over, so I just leave you alone. I always figure I'm just walking in on you. All right, here we go. How about the Richard Sherman podcast this
right?
week? How strong was that?
I'll tell you a little of the background here for people that are curious. So obviously you and Rich had a podcast last year and we wanted to do a Richard Sherman podcast. And this summer has been a crazy summer, obviously, with not knowing where he's going to play, with all of the stuff off the field for him. And we kept thinking about, okay, well, how do we actually get this done? You know, what's the best way to launch this podcast? And a couple weeks before, I talked to his manager Mitch, who's the co-host also on the podcast. And he's like, "Look, we might have this opportunity. Okay, there are teams that are interested." And we talked about it. I said, "Let's announce it on the podcast." And we're like, "This is. Can we beat Schefter to this? You know, like, there's no way that Adam Schefter is going to tweet this out before we can launch the podcast." We're like, "Screw it, we'll try." So we're under the cover of darkness. We recorded the podcast before he got on the flight to Tampa. But it was a last minute thing. It was like, we got to record this because if you sign, we got to be ready to launch it. And so everyone is just on pins. Exactly. And so I'm getting up in the morning. I'm on a call, our social production call in the morning, first meeting of the day. And Mitch calls me and he goes, "All right." He's sitting down with the pen in his hand. We got to launch this thing.
Launch this sucker. Let's go.
So it was so cool because Rich was so excited about it. He controlled the narrative. And I think it got people excited for what is going to be a really cool podcast. He is going to be on the most interesting team in the NFL with the greatest player of all time in Tom Brady. He's got a redemption story himself. And he's such a fascinating guy, as you know, and he's going to be talking about the league.
What was interesting in his first press conference, he addressed the off-the-field issues that he had. And he did it really openly and honestly. I was really proud of him. He kind of came out and he effectively said, I got some help that I needed, that I didn't think that I needed any help, but this sort of brought it to light, and it's really made a big difference. And how many other players had reached out to him since then and said, "Man, you make it sound like it's okay to go get help," because everybody has their own issues and everybody thinks they're alone with those issues. And Richard Sherman is a great guy to have sort of as a lead spokesperson, because nobody's ever going to look at Richard as being soft or not tough enough or not cool enough or not, inner city enough or any of those things, right? And I just thought it was really a cool moment. So I look forward to it.
The thing that I took away from your guys' podcast, where you had other people, players and coaches and GMs on there, was how much respect GMs, players, coaches had for Richard. And I don't know that Richard actually knew that. I think it was kind of surprising for him because when we were talking about this podcast, you'll crack up at this. One of the things he asked was, do you think we'll be able to get guests on the show?
Dude.
Buddy. Yes, man. Like every single young DB, good DB, any wide receiver was like, Rich, I so much appreciate what you've done for this league and I look up to you.
I remember when we were on with Brandon Staley, who's now the Chargers head coach, and they went so deep into the weeds on details of defensive coverages. And both of them have that kind of mind where they can recall like great details of long drives. And I was like, they are leaving me in the dust with this conversation right here. So, all right, speaking of leaving everybody in the dust, we want everybody to make money this week. We want all God's children need to make a little money this week. So let's go. So I'm getting ready to go to the Bengals game right now. They're going to celebrate Ken Riley, the great Ken Riley, who nobody knows. He's whatever, 5th or 6th or 7th in all-time leading interceptors in the league. Guy that probably taught me more football than anybody I know. He's going into the Ring of Honor tonight. Unfortunately, he passed away a while ago. And Kenny Anderson going in as well. So Anthony Munoz, Paul Brown, of course, you knew they would. But so I'm going to the game, Jags and Bengals, and it looks like the Bengals are 7.5-point favorites. Joe Burrow is outplaying Trevor Lawrence by a lot, but you sort of get the feeling that Trevor Lawrence is like tick, 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 and you hope it doesn't go off in your stadium.
So we're going to talk about this with a lot of games. The Bengals just played the Steelers. Now, we've talked about the Steelers before. Last week, I said, I can't wait to fade Ben Roethlisberger. The Bengals are going to come in there and make a statement. And they did. Tyler Boyd's out there saying, hey, the Steelers gave up. This now is a game in a place where the Bengals aren't. They're not the favorite. They were the underdog last week. They overcame and they won. 7.5 points is a lot of points. Like we talk on the forecast, Eric and I, all the time. Numbers like 3 and 7 mean a lot. Winning a game by more than 7 points is a lot. So while I obviously think that the Bengals are going to win this game, if I had to bet on the spread on one side, the value is there in the Jaguars, right? It's not there in the Bengals. You're buying them at the top of the market. Burrow's playing great. He has more deep passing touchdowns just to Jamar Chase this year than he had all of last year. But Zach Taylor, from an offensive standpoint, is not someone that I trust yet to go out and beat a team by 2 scores.
It'll be interesting to see if they can keep that up. If you can hit some deep balls, it does incredible things for your offense. It just creates space for everybody else out there, Joe Burrow in particular. I mean, if you have to play 2 deep safeties to make sure that Jamar Chase doesn't get behind you, all of a sudden now you're running the ball like crazy and he's running the ball like crazy. So
you think that Chase pick was the right pick now?
Oh my God. Oh, I mean, it's really his catch against Pittsburgh where he caught the back half of that football blew me away last week.
And he couldn't even see it because they didn't have the lines on him.
I mean, he caught the back half of the football. I just want to play with some of those gloves sometime. I swear I do. All right, here we go. We've got the Bucs and the Patriots. That's our game, Sunday Night Football. 6.5-point favorite, over under 49. Mac Jones against Tom Brady. Mac Jones is good. Mac Jones, of all the rookies, he's the best one anyway so far.
He looks the most every time Zach Wilson, this is how I explain it. Every time Zach Wilson drops back to pass, I go, it's going to be an interception. I'm just terrified for the poor guy. Mac Jones, it's not that he's played great, but you don't have that same like terrified, oh my God, is he just going to put the ball up for grabs every single time? Which I think is why it makes sense that he's a Patriot. This game is interesting. On Sunday night, when Eric and I do our bleary-eyed live show, the Buccaneers were 5.5-point favorites, and I'm all in. I'm all in on 5.5. 6.5, and actually in some places now it is 7 points, is not nearly as good of a deal. If you're going to bet this game, this is my favorite bet. Tom Brady over 2.5 passing touchdowns at like plus 130, plus 140. Means you bet 100, you get back if you win 240. The Patriots are without Stephon Gilmore, #1 cover guy in the league over the past 3 years. And you know who the Bucs get back? Antonio Brown. They miss him. He's Brady's favorite target. He is, when Antonio Brown is on the field, Tom Brady's number one target in terms of targets per throw is Antonio Brown. So that's my favorite bet of those. And I think if I'm going to bet the game, either spread or total, I'd go over 49.
Antonio Brown, though, with no practice. I mean, literally, walk out of the. Okay, I'm back from COVID, and
I mean,
as long as he's healthy. I mean, none of us know what COVID could have done to him, right? Yeah. And no practice, but I'm sure if anybody can do it.
Can I ask you just one thing about this? Like, Bill, because I was listening to what Ari was saying, and he was like, Tom knows Bill's scheme and all this stuff. Bill has been preparing this game plan since like last July, right? Yeah. Okay.
I mean, yeah, but again, what can you do?
Yeah.
If they go spread, which they might. Now, they may not, because they are going to have some injured wide receivers on their side of the ball as well. No Scotty Miller is not going to be there. Are you ready to go Tyler Johnson and Antonio Brown and spread it out with Godwin and Evans and those guys? But that's not really who they are. This team is a team that plays a lot of 3 tight ends. This is a team that plays power football and then play action off of it. So I almost would be surprised if they did. And then what is Belichick? Is he going to just try and beat up this 44-year-old man?
That's what I think.
Is he going to drop 11 into coverage? Like, what's he going to do? He's going to. How do you be a genius against Tom Brady?
I like the drop 11 into coverage. I also like. I'm just going to say this. Did you see Tom Brady's press conference today?
No.
Okay. He has a bad cold.
Really?
I don't know if Bill Belichick hacked into his home and turn the temperature down. I don't know, man, but I'm putting nothing past Bill Belichick in this game.
I'll ask him that. That'll be good.
Please.
I'll try to get thrown out in my first question. That'll be good. Usually I'm on my third before I get thrown out. All right, Chiefs and Eagles. The Kansas City Chiefs are in last place in their division. How much money could you make on that if you said, make me a bet that after 3 weeks, there'll be 2 undefeated teams and the Chiefs will be in last place?
Well, I hate to say this, but we did make some bets on that. The Raiders were PFF's like number 1 team in terms of how we felt relative to the market. We loved their over. It was like 6.5 at one point in the offseason. So that was one way to bet that. Like, imagine the Chiefs are just going to be great forever. Yeah, okay. But there's also a good chance that they're not. I'm not going to lie, I bet the Raiders to win the division before last week at 7.5 to 1. And I feel pretty good about that. I mean, I don't think that I think the Chiefs are still, the team that's most likely to. But what I see, and I'm, wondering what you think, it's like all of the plays that Mahomes makes that are amazing are still high variance plays. And they can still go wrong. The no-look pass that now is an interception. And
hello, Holly.
I'm sure she has a take.
She's probably here with my tickets for the game.
There you go. And so it's those little things that I think are just not going right for them. But I'm pretty confident they're going to get it back on track. This game, spread of 7. If you bet this on Sunday night before the Eagles got killed, you could have got 5.5. Again, come hang out on Sunday night. My favorite bet in this game is, again, Mahomes over 2.5 touchdowns with the passing touchdowns, with the Eagles having no ability to cover the Chiefs receivers.
The Eagles will knock them around a little bit. I think the Eagles got embarrassed. The other thing that I'm concerned about a little bit, the move of Chris Jones out to end, I'm not sure
it's working.
You're not doing teams a favor, because now you can chip him, you can run, you can have run plays at him that he hasn't seen coming at him. Now, maybe by the end of the year, it's a sure thing, but it also gives you the ability to completely run away from him.
Yeah.
When he's inside, no matter where you're running, you got to deal with something of this guy. And especially when he was rushing against guards, he's just too long, too big, too
much better than them. Yeah.
I'm interested.
Yeah. This 7 is a lot. The Chiefs have not covered a spread in a very long time.
Yeah. But the other thing, the Chiefs are seeing a lot of protective coverages, and they're just not letting Tyreek get that. And honestly, that's what happened to him in the Super Bowl.
Yep.
They came out the first time they played a season ago, bombs away, man coverage, bagged that. They end up switching over, playing zone, played zone in the Super Bowl, and locked them down. And now 2 out of 3 games, they're seeing that form of it. And Tyreek Hill, after 190-something yards in week 1, has kind of been nowhere to be seen. And you take away the big play, and you can begin to feel some frustration in Kansas City on that offensive side.
Forcing the big play.
Correct. Panthers at Cowboys. How about them Cowboys? That was impressive. And, Dak Prescott, God, he looks like he's back, man.
Where is he right now for you in quarterbacks in the league?
I think you have to project a little bit. I mean, he looked great in that game. And I think you have to anticipate he's going to get better. I mean, he basically sat out a year of football and rehabbed an ankle. And it just feels like for the first time, all the things on this offense that we thought were going to be good are actually good. And the defense doesn't totally suck now, which is a big leap from where they were a season ago.
From totally sucking.
Yeah, I don't know what the other end of that is. But, but I'm interested in Carolina. I mean, Dak's going to see a defense that can play.
Yes. This is Cowboys now by 4.5 points. And the Cowboys just had their best game of the season on Monday Night Football at home. The Panthers played on Thursday night, beat the crap out of the Texans, should be pretty damn well rested, and come in, I think, in this being overlooked despite being 3-0. Now, they've had an easy schedule, but at 4.5, I talk about this a lot, but 14% of games in the NFL end up in a 3-point difference. So when that 3-point difference means a win for you, that matters a lot. And in this case, a 3-point win for the Cowboys is a win for you if you bet the Panthers. So even as hard as that is, having just watched the Cowboys, if I'm betting the spread here, I will take the Panthers. And that's what our models on PFF Greenline would lead me to do as well. I'm with you in the sense that not only are the Panthers defensively pretty solid, but Joe Brady's scheme on offense, I mean, it's been amazing. They have been a more efficient offense than the Dallas Cowboys have been to this point.
Yeah, it gets tough without McCaffrey, right? That sure is a nice security blanket.
Yeah. But Hubbard's good though.
I'm there. I'm there. All right, one more. I want to pick out a good one here. I've got to go.
There's a couple good ones, yeah.
Which one do you like? Which one do you want to talk about?
Let's talk about this game, which is Cleveland, Minnesota.
Cleveland's interesting. I'll give you that.
Yeah, I'll do 2 for the price of 1.
Okay.
Cleveland is a 2-point favorite in Minnesota. Minnesota just played an incredible game, beat the crap out of the Seahawks. Seahawks couldn't cover anybody to save their life in that game. Cleveland will be able to cover, and here's the big one, Myles Garrett is going up against Rashad Hill. You can get a PFF subscription and go find out how well Rashad Hill has played tackle. It will not be good enough to stop Myles Garrett. I like Cleveland covering in that game. And then here's my favorite one of the week, and it might be down to 3 now, but in some places you can find 3.5, are Las Vegas Raiders. Returning back to Los Angeles, they're playing the Chargers off their biggest win in history. And there isn't a 3-point difference between these teams on a neutral field. I don't think there's a lot of home field advantage in the NFL, period. That's borne out by the data. Road teams are way closer to home teams than the spread indicates. And if you think the Chargers have more fans in LA than the Raiders, you haven't been following football.
Really? So it could be a home crowd for the Raiders.
I just don't think it'll be that big. It won't be what the Rams had against the Bucs, is kind of what I'm thinking, where the Rams really had a presence there. I would be surprised if the Chargers had a massive home field advantage here. And I'll say this, Herbert's played great. I think my MVP right now is Derek Carr.
Derek Carr, it's taken a while to get it there, but he knows what John Gruden's brain is thinking. If you talk to John Gruden, you go, other people will say they have a photographic memory. I'm telling you right now, Derek Carr can remember details of things that happened in a conversation 8 months ago, and he translates them on the field. So if they really get it going, and I'm going to put them right in that same category, now that their defense doesn't suck, right? Just be average. It's all you got to be. They're undefeated.
It's amazing what some decent players, will do for you, like KJ Wright and Casey Hayward Jr. And man, he's playing amazing. I mean, go check it out on PFF.com. Like every facet of play, he has been sensational. So MVP Derek Carr.
George Chahrouri with breaking it down. Everybody's making Christmas money off of this. And,
feed the children, man.
Feed the children. There we go. All right. Thanks for coming, George. And we will see all of you, hopefully, next week. And welcome into the Chris Collinsworth podcast. We are all things Tom Brady, Bill Belichick this week. I am calling the game along with Al Michaels on Sunday Night Football. We hope you will join us. Apparently the tickets are running for over $1,200 a ticket. I was trying to imagine what my ticket might go for. So if you see it on eBay, then go ahead and log in and I'll get fired, but it'll be fun. Joining us first on the program, we have a myriad of guests here today. We're going to zip through everybody to give you a big time feel of what's going on with this game. Doug Kyed is our NFL reporter who lives in the Boston area. And understand, Doug, you got a chance to watch practice today. Is that right?
Yeah, just a little bit, just that open window that Bill Belichick gives us up until stretching. But everyone's looking pretty healthy out there, which is a good sign other than James White, who will be out for the season. But yeah, things looked positive out there today.
Yeah, the through calisthenics, and then they parade you guys out of there, and we get to stay. That's the greatest perk of our job, is that we actually get to watch these guys practice, which is amazing. I mean, it really is. Probably the thing that surprises me most about Belichick at practice, he doesn't talk. He doesn't talk. I mean, and I asked him about it one day, and I said, like, literally, I'm not kidding you, for 2 Super Bowl practices when we were in Indy, he stood next to me for both practices. And we talked about everything. And at the end, he said, you know, the end of the second day, he said, do you have any other questions? I'm like, no. I go, what couldn't we have covered in the last 2 days? So people think that he's this media monster and he's terrible with all that. But in reality, he's pretty open, pretty honest. He gets mad at us sometimes. I don't want to say we don't get the Belichick treatment sometimes. Sometimes we do. But it really is, it's amazing to watch them practice, because he wants his team to learn how to communicate without coaches. So his whole thing is, why do I want my coaches out there telling them what to do? Because they can't be there in the games. They have to learn to communicate themselves, and that's the way they treat practice.
Yeah, I think that's one of the big differences between the practices that you get to stay for and the ones that we see during training camp, because there's a lot more, obviously, on-hand training between Bill Belichick and the players. And just one other thing about Patriots practices that I've noticed since I've been covering the league, because I covered the Patriots for 8 years, is that every other team gives players these veteran rest days. And the Patriots just don't. That doesn't exist here in New England like it does with other teams. And I think that catches players by surprise in New England. But no, I mean, veterans practice and the practice squad players are on the scout team. And that's the way it works in New England.
I tell you, there are a lot of really good teams that don't do that geared down thing. They, you know, the Patriots certainly don't give people off on Fridays. They're running full speed. It's not some jog through like it is with other teams. The Pittsburgh Steelers are like that. So there's some old school and new school, and certainly Bill Belichick, a little bit of that old school bit. So give me a little bit of a feel for the buzz up there. I can only imagine, like, you know, it's got to be unbelievable that Brady's coming back into town. But it also has to be a little bit hard, because it almost feels like that the Patriots are in this start over phase, rookie quarterback, Mac Jones. What's it feel like there?
I think that it becomes a lot more real for Patriots fans this week. And last year, it was still kind of distant. They didn't have to play each other. A lot of their games were at 1 o'clock, then 4 o'clock. So Tom Brady was kind of this different entity out in Tampa Bay that Patriots fans didn't have to worry about. And now it's feeling a lot different. And I'm very curious to see just what the reaction is like, not only for Tom Brady, but also on Sunday if the Patriots start to struggle, because I think that it's going to be a pretty quick trigger for Patriots fans that if they do start to see some struggles out there, the boo birds might come out. And by the end of the game, who knows, maybe the fans in the stands will be a little bit more supportive of Tom Brady than the Patriots, just because it does. It becomes a lot more real this week for them. And the struggles that they've had stand out a little bit more. And we actually already started to see some boos when the Saints came to town. So very curious to see what the reaction is like on Sunday night here.
Watching that Saints game pretty closely, Mac Jones is a guy that they're bringing along slowly. I think even they would admit this. A lot of checkdowns. He missed some throws down the field with open guys that he just didn't see that he had checked it down. He did make some nice throws down the field. I don't want to make it sound like he didn't make any. But this is going to be a bit of a ball control. And the thing that I think impressed me the most, or when he was the most impressive, really was when they went to that spread offense. And the reads became simpler. He didn't have to worry about all the blitz possibilities. But what it did was it took them out of that 2 tight end mode that we got to be so used to with Tom Brady and the play action and the run first thing. So do you play to the quarterback or do you play to what you signed, which are 2 high-priced tight ends?
That's kind of the $1 million question, or the $15 million question, however much those 2 tight ends cost at this point. I think that you do have to play to your quarterback's strengths, and if that means only having one of those tight ends on the field during those crunch situations, then I think that might be what you have to do. One thing that you just mentioned is that there have been a lot of checkdowns for Mac Jones, and that raises the importance of a player like James White now being out for the season, is that you don't have that security blanket at this point when you need to go to the check down. And I'm just curious to see who the Patriots actually thrust into that role at this point, because last week it was Brandon Bolden. I'm not sure how sustainable that is long-term. I think that was just the running back that Bill Belichick really trusted the most to thrust into the game. But I think that now you have to trust either J.J. Taylor or Ramondre Stevenson, 2 young running backs that hadn't fully earned the trust of the coaching staff up to this point. But that's another thing that they have to decide. Do they go with a trustworthy option who's not as athletic and not as dynamic like Brandon Bolden, or do they start trusting the kids in J.J. Taylor and Ramondre Stevenson?
Well, it's not like that Tampa doesn't have issues in this one either. So they have 2 of their 3 starting cornerbacks out. Sean Murphy-Bunting, Jamel Dean, both guys struggling. They signed Richard Sherman on that side of the ball this week. And so does he get in the game? Do they rely on the backups? I thought Ross Cockrell played pretty well last week. Carlton Davis, a good player. D. Delaney, who really was just a special teams guy that barely made the roster, was in there playing corner for him last week. So there may be some opportunities to throw the ball for Mac Jones in this one. But one thing that no team can overcome is when a team like the Saints and the Bucs are fully capable of this too, just line up and play power football all day and just go, hey, until you stop this running game, we're not coming out of it.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And the Patriots did build up their defense this offseason. They've got Devon Godshaw, they've got Dante Hightower back, Matthew Judon in there. But the defense just hasn't been as dependable, as sustainable as I thought it was going to be this season. So that's one thing that definitely has to improve for the Patriots on the defensive side of the ball, is that it really just has to gel together. Dante Hightower has to start playing better. They lost a linebacker in there, Juwan Bentley, for a period of time. So that's one thing that they have to do on defense. And then on offense as well, I think that the Patriots do have a chance to be that grinded out, pounded out offense. We just haven't fully seen it yet. So one other thing I'll be watching for is Trent Brown. Trent Brown, we'll see if he can play in this game. He's had to miss a couple of weeks with a calf injury. He's barely played this season, but getting him back in the fold at right tackle would be really big for the Patriots on offense.
Yeah, Justin Herron definitely was the weaker of the links in there this past week. Trent Brown, if you put Trent Brown on that offensive line, they could definitely play grinded out football. They could definitely play power football. So that's going to be a big look. But the other guys across that offensive line, I'll take Isaiah Wynn, Owenu, David Andrews, Shaq Mason all day. Those guys can play. And then you add in Trent Brown. So maybe the best is still to come. Poor Jonnu Smith in that game the other day. I've never seen a guy who's a good player have as bad a game as he had in that one.
I know it's tough. He had, 2 or 3 drops in that game. He caused one of the interceptions for Mac Jones. And that's one thing that was actually kind of interesting in that game is that Mac Jones threw 3 interceptions, but I'm not sure if any of them were fully his fault. One bobbled off of Johnny Smith's hands. Another one came when he was hit while he was throwing. Another one looked like it was miscommunication with Nelson Aguilar. But
yeah, with like 15 seconds to go in the game, too. I mean, it was a totally meaningless time of the game, too.
Definitely. But no, I mean, I think Johnny Smith, they have to get it figured out there because, as I mentioned earlier, they paid him and Hunter Henry a bunch of money. I certainly thought that the 2 tight end set was going to be a massive advantage for the Patriots this season, just because there aren't that many teams who have 2 tight ends on the field for the majority of time. I thought it would make them more unpredictable. The fact that those guys can catch the ball, they can also block, but it just hasn't come together yet. So maybe it just takes some time for Jonnu Smith to gel into this new offense. But I was expecting a lot more from him just because of his really intriguing combination of athleticism, versatility, blocking ability. I thought that he was the perfect fit for the Patriots offense and just hasn't clicked at this point.
Well, he's much more of the downfield threat. Hunter Henry, much more of the sort of the traditional 10 yards in a cloud of dust sort of threat, a true Y kind of guy in there. But just from a raw emotional standpoint, I was really interested in your points that you made about, I think the pain of losing Tom Brady may come out in this game. Now, it won't. If the game's, 17-14 and it's down to the wire, then great. I think that's a win for the Patriots and Mac Jones, regardless of the final score. But if somehow this thing ends up 42 to 10, right, that's going to be hard. I mean, that's going to be really hard. People are going to begin to go, why was it again that we let Tom Brady walk out the door? What could we have done to make sure that didn't happen? Right? That's going to get to be topic 1 for a long time if that's the way this game comes out.
Absolutely. And I mean, some of the media in Boston kind of lean into that as well. Some of the talk radio, even when the Patriots are winning Super Bowls, a lot of them like to find the negativity in everything that's going on. So if this does turn into a game, like you said, that becomes a blowout, not only do I think that there's going to be heavy boos in Gillette Stadium, then some really outlandish things are going to be coming out of the Boston sports radio. And I don't know how much Bill Belichick pays attention to all of that, but I certainly think that he's going to want to avoid it. And it's been a tough few years for the Patriots, not only just losing Tom Brady, but there's been a lot of turnover in the front office. They've lost Nick Caserio. They've lost Monty Austinford, some scouts, Pat Stewart, DeJuan Daniels. They've lost a lot of coaches. They lost Ernie Adams. So it's not only Tom Brady that the Patriots have lost over the last few years. There's been a lot of attrition in that organization. And now is the time that it would be nice for them, I think, from Bill Belichick's perspective, to really turn it around in this game and at least keep it close, if not win.
The other thing that I found interesting was there weren't the explosive plays, right? When you watch the Patriots, I hate to say this, but it was a little dull, I mean, even when they were behind. So let's paint the picture again. It was 10-3. They go into halftime, or maybe 13-3, whatever it was. It was fairly close. And they come back out, and the first play of the second half is when Jonnu Smith bobbles the ball and they return it for a touchdown. So they had a chance to kick the field goal, get the ball back to start the second half, have another drive, maybe score a touchdown. We've got a 3-point game. But to start the second half, it was over. That pick six, the game ended really at that moment. So, I guess, is this team now a team that just has to play slow down football, has to play, we're going to do 12-play drives with a rookie quarterback, and we just aren't going to see the explosive plays despite the fact that Nelson Aguilar was signed, who made so many big plays with the Raiders a year ago. Jonnu Smith, is not the explosive guy down the field. How do they get those breakout plays out of this offense? And who is it? I mean, who is it that is going to be Kendrick Bourne? I mean, he probably came closest to anybody last week.
I think that it is about hitting on some of those plays that they tried early in the game. I think that they tried to go downfield with Mac Jones early in the game. They were close, but didn't quite hit on them. But I think it has to be a Nelson Aguilar. He was such a big play threat last season, that I do think that that's why they brought him in. They thought that he would be that deep option for whoever the quarterback was in 2021. It's obviously winding up being Mac Jones. But I do think that even if they're not getting those big plays, it probably is the smartest approach to take it as safe as possible with Mac Jones, because there's a reason why he's been better than Zach Wilson. There's a reason that he's been better than Trevor Lawrence. And that's because they haven't taken the same amount of chances with him. I thought that Robert Saleh said something interesting after the Jets-Patriots game, and that's that Zach Wilson needs to learn to play a boring brand of football. And that's what the Patriots are kind of doing right now, which is what you've referenced with those 12-play drives. I don't think that you can allow a rookie to beat himself by being that aggressive option until you fully trust him to. So it's about hitting on those big plays when you actually do try them. And like I said, last week, I think they were close early in the game on some deep shots. They just didn't quite hit them. So it's about that extra percentile, that extra bit that's actually going to allow them to hit on those big plays. But I don't think there's going to be many of them.
Yeah, Robert Saleh maybe want to be careful what he says to Zach Wilson. I think he took it a little too literally. I have no idea. Hey, Doug, thank you so much. We'll go on to Ari here in just a minute and come up with the news of the week around the National Football League. But I know, like you in that Boston area, you're looking forward to that one. And so am I. I think this is one of the most interesting matchups to see how Bill Belichick will play Tom Brady. Nobody knows more about each other than these two guys.
One of the biggest regular season games ever. Yeah, I cannot wait for it. It's gonna be a good one.
Thank you, Doug.
Thank you.
Joining us now is our good friend that nobody can ever say his name, and myself included, Ari Meirov. How'd I do?
Much better. That's. Listen, Chris, I appreciate you asking before. That's all I'm going to say, because a lot of people have botched it and you nailed it here on your first try. So
from here on out on the podcast, you're Ari. So that's it. I'm going to try to get it once per podcast to get this thing right. So my sports update you're still using that title though, right? Even though you're working for PFF, you're still my sports update.
For now, yeah. The biggest issue that I've realized so far when talking to other people is that everybody knows me by that name. So I feel like if I change it, it's going to create a whole situation. So I'm trying to do a bit of a slow approach and get people ready for it. But eventually it's going to have to change. Yeah. But everyone I talk to is like, oh yeah, my sports update. I'm like, yeah.
And maybe you just tag it with PFF. My sports update PFF. You can just throw something in there at the end.
We'll figure something out.
Nobody will care. All right. We do know what they do care about, though, this Patriots game. The New England Patriots, Bill Belichick, the genius that, forget the Super Bowls he's won in New England. He's got 2 rings while being defensive coordinator with the Giants. I mean, this guy has consistently been at the top of the defensive game as anybody in the history of the league. Now he's got his guy, Tom Brady, he's emptied the bucket with, right? He's told Tom Brady everything he knows about everything, and Tom Brady has emptied the bucket back the other way. It just could not be a more interesting in-home battle than between these two as they now get towards the end of their careers.
It's totally true. And, there's so many fascinating elements to this game. And I'm sure the NBC truck already has a million graphics ready to roll for Sunday night. But the interesting thing for me, with the whole lead up to this is that it feels like Brady and Belichick are playing along with the drama. Both these guys could have done their weekly press conferences this week, and they could have just, sung praises for each other for the last 20 years, what we did, the 6 Super Bowls, all the success, but they're not doing that. I mean, one of Belichick's answers this week to a question about Tom Brady was, yeah, we talked about that topic in the statement we released when he left. Seriously, you have nothing else to say about Tom? It feels like there's, why are they doing this? Tom also, he said some positive things about Bill, but it feels like there's so many more things you could say, and they're not doing that. So the lead up has been fascinating. Also, Tom's personal trainer, or whatever you want to call him, Alex Guerrero, came out and said something against Bill. Who knows if that was all set up? So it's fascinating to see all that happen. And then, besides for the Brady and Bill, aspect to this game. I think what's being lost in the shuffle is the Mac Jones effect. Mac Jones, this is a pretty big opportunity for a rookie quarterback because this is going to be like a Super Bowl atmosphere there. I read today that they're getting more security for this game, for the handshake after the game. They want to make sure everything is cleared off like a Super Bowl. And, all that happening, and the fans are going to be there. And I saw that the NBC Nightly News is going to be there on Friday, and the ESPN pregame show is coming there, and NFL Network is coming there, NBC is coming there for their pregame show. Everyone is going to be there. And this is a pretty big opportunity for Mac Jones just to be in that environment. And even if he loses, I feel like if he just plays well, his confidence level as a quarterback will just shoot up. So I think that's another little thing about this game that we should keep an eye on as well.
Yeah, for Mac Jones, it's like he's like the Washington Generals in a Globetrotter game, right?
Right.
He's just the other guy out there. So he does have a chance to make an impression. And I think the general consensus was, he threw 3 interceptions the last game, and he's just a rookie like all the other guys. I don't think that's the case. I think of all these rookie quarterbacks, he's the one that has shown the ability to read defenses. He's the one that has shown the ability to get the ball out of his hands at a professional level. There are going to be a lot of things within the game. I think his movement within the pocket could definitely improve. His finding open receivers that are the downfield targets could definitely improve. But more than anything, they need some plays. They need somebody to break a tackle and score from 60 yards out, or to have a big run off a screen pass. Or against the Saints, it was just so methodical, and they were behind by so much. You just never really felt like it was almost like, they may get back and make it sound like a good game. But in the NFL, those big plays are what decides games.
Yeah, for sure. But, your point on all these rookie quarterbacks getting playing time so far, Mac really has been the one who looks like he's adjusting at least, on average, okay. Like all these other quarterbacks have had some struggles. And that was really the thing about the pre-draft process throughout, was Mac Jones and his IQ and his ability to understand the game. And we're kind of seeing that a little bit. But New England throughout this offseason, they were really aggressive in trying to find those playmakers, because last year they did not have it. So they signed Nelson Aguilar, they signed Kendrick Bourne, they signed Jonnu Smith, they signed Hunter Henry, but we really haven't seen it yet. So it could just be, it's taking some time to get the rhythm down. Mac is the week 1 starting quarterback when some people thought it wouldn't happen. But, when you talk about all these other quarterbacks who have been starting from this rookie class, he has looked, okay so far. So I think that's a good sign for him to just keep on moving forward. And that's really what the Patriots are hoping for. And, the one thing that we know is that Josh McDaniels there was really one of the main people there who were really wanted him to be the week 1 star, and he got it done eventually with Cam being released. But I think they really believe in him as he's going to be the guy moving forward. And, we've seen some glimpses so far, but we're still waiting for that big play, as you said, Chris. And I think it's going to take some time, but this offense, there's so many new faces there that it should take time, but we'll see how it all plays out. But I think I have a good feeling about this team and where they're going.
I just wonder what Bill has up his sleeve, right? And how much can he have up his sleeve? So let's say that they go crazy. They drop 11 into coverage. They blitz 8 guys every time and try and beat up the 44-year-old man. Either side of the extreme of this thing. Well, if they do that, then Brady could just go into a spread offense, and there at most could be 6 guys around the line of scrimmage. He's going to know exactly what it is. You're going to have to play some man coverage. He's going to pick it apart. So it's almost like how great a defensive coordinator he is. If you have a quarterback that knows how to adjust on the field, on the fly to anything, which Brady certainly does, and now with the year of experience with his team in Tampa, is it possible that Belichick really will be limited in his arsenal?
That's what's interesting about this game. It's more of trying to figure out who everyone's going to be looking at all the mind games that are going to be going on in this game between Bill and Brady because they know each other so well. That's what makes it so fascinating. And it's really, I found it interesting this week where Bill said that they're running basically the same offense there, maybe just different verbiage over there. But that's such an interesting thing for Bill to say. And that's what's really going to be interesting about this game. Whatever Bill dials up, Tom probably already knows most of this stuff. So exactly what you said, what is up Bill's sleeve? What is he going to do there to try to confuse Tom Brady? Because this is somebody who's been playing forever. He basically has seen it all already, right? So that's the most interesting thing about this game is just to see the Bill and Brady aspect, knowing that they know each other already for 20 plus years. How is that all going to play out when Tom is on offense and Bill is the one who's calling the defense there? That's going to be the most fascinating part about this game. And I think we're going to have some mind games there on the field whenever it does come down to all of it.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think they're both at their heart a power running team and play action off of that. And but I will say I thought Mac Jones, the best he looked in that game last week was when they went to the spread offense, and he didn't have to worry about all the blitzes and all the different looks that the NFL defense can throw at him. I know you're in New York. The Jets and Giants now a combined 0-6. It's a tough time right now in New York.
Not just now, it's been here for a while now. It's pretty bad. And it's unfortunate because coming into this year, there was actually some energy for both these teams. And off the bat, both of them are 0-6, as you just said, Chris. And really, the Giants really could be 2-1 right now. They've really just been shooting themselves in the foot with some just stupid mistakes. The loss to Washington on Thursday night should have been a win. Last week versus Atlanta, I mean, it was just really a pathetic performance there against a team that was coming in struggling. The Giants had a long week. They couldn't do anything on offense. So that's, with the Giants. But probably the bigger part of here for the Giants is that their schedule that is coming up right now is just absolutely brutal. You start this week where they get the Saints in New Orleans for the first game coming back from Hurricane Ida. You could just imagine the crowd noise that is going to be there in the Superdome. So that's just their first game coming up. After that, they go to Dallas. We just saw them on Monday Night Football. That's another tough test. After they get Dallas, they have a game against, I believe it's the undefeated Rams. After the Rams, they get the undefeated Panthers. After the Panthers, they get the Chiefs. After the Chiefs, they get the undefeated Raiders. And after that, they get the Super Bowl champion Bucks. This is a schedule that is absolutely brutal. And when you look at their first three games, they had against, quarterbacks who really shouldn't scare you, right? It's Teddy Bridgewater in week 1. It's Taylor Heineke in week 2. It's an aging Matt Ryan in week 3, and they couldn't get the job done. And now this schedule is coming up over here, and they could be staring, at a really bad record come that week 10, week 11, here this season. And even worse, they've had some really bad injuries. Blake Martinez is out for the year. Nick Gates, who's one of their better offensive linemen, is out for the year. Their wide receivers, Kenny Galladay, was screaming at Jason Garrett at one point on Thursday night. Kadarius Toney has been non-existent. So it's been as bad as it could get so far for them. And it just looks like it's going to get even worse just based off that schedule. As for the Jets, I mean, it's been a struggle for Zach Wilson. The blitz has been a bit of a problem for him. The offense can't get anything going, but the defense surprisingly actually hasn't been that bad. Robert Saleh's defense has actually been pretty fine in terms of getting off the field on third downs and in the end zone, but it's really just trying to see what they could do on offense with Zach Wilson. If you want to, have some positivity here, it's more that they've faced some really tough defenses so far with Carolina, with New England, and then last week where they had to face Denver. So, they get the Titans this week who blitz a lot, but their secondary isn't great. So you hope they can finally bounce back. But I know that they really believe in Mike LaFleur, who's the play caller there, but they really need to pick it up over here. But this is a team who's looking towards the future. They have so many picks coming up next year. They're trying to build a roster here. And, they weren't expecting much to happen this year, but they obviously want to see more than what they've gotten. So,
yeah, unfortunately, usually when you go, okay, the Giants might have the worst record or a 10-game losing streak or whatever, and then they get the top pick in the draft. But I don't know that Daniel Jones really has been the issue. It's been like everything else, it's been going on there. So let's go on to the positive side of the NFL. We have 5 undefeated teams. And if you would have told me the Rams, Carolina, Las Vegas, Arizona, and Denver were going to be the 5 undefeated teams, you could own my house, my car, my anything you wanted to. So the Rams, okay, not that big a shocker, but to knock off Tom Brady already in their first game, and albeit in that new stadium, it's the first time that Tampa, as a team with Tom Brady, really had played on the road within a hostile environment with a crowd, and I thought that impacted them a little bit. But Carolina, Sam Darnold, you guys saw him in New York forever. Is that surprising?
It is surprising because, first of all, many people thought that Carolina overpaid when they went to trade for him. They gave up a 2, a 4, and a 6 when there wasn't much interest there. But here he is in a new offense with Matt Rule and Joe Brady, and he has been pretty good so far. I mean, like, even this offensive line, not many people thought they'll be good. There's a bunch of, aging guys, journeymen there on the offensive line who have held up so far. Sam Darnold is tied for the league in rushing touchdowns. I mean, like, the guy he's playing the way we expected him to play when he came out of USC and was the number 3 overall pick. So that's been a pleasant surprise so far. But I think, this week where you get the Cowboys coming in, we just saw what they did on Monday Night Football. And I just mentioned the offensive line for Carolina. That defensive line for Dallas, especially with what Micah Parsons has been doing as of late, that's an interesting matchup there. And now he doesn't have Christian McCaffrey. That's a big loss. And defensively, they don't have JC Horn now, who's likely out for the year. So they're dealing with some big injuries. It's still early in the season. You want to see a little more of it. But so far, Sam Darnold has been phenomenal, and this is something that not many people really expected. A lot of people were writing him off, but after 3 games so far, we've liked what we've seen.
All right. How about the Denver Broncos? Are we believing this 3-0?
So the Denver is really interesting because, they're 3-0, but the teams that they've beaten so far are a combined 0-9. So their season really begins right now, and they get Baltimore this week. It's going to be interesting to see what happens. Lamar actually has now practiced these last 2 days with a back injury, but nobody believes it's something serious. But this is really now their first real test. You've beaten the Jaguars, you beat the Jets, you beat the Giants. Now you're getting a Baltimore team who's coming off this enormous win over Detroit with the 66-yard game-winning field goal, which was just amazing. And, this is really where it's going to be really interesting. Teddy Bridgewater so far has played really well. They basically traded nothing to get him. Carolina is paying most of his salary. So they really got him for nothing. And he's played pretty well so far, making their decision to make him the starting quarterback look pretty good. One of the bigger surprises to me actually has been just seeing Von Miller play like the Von Miller of the past. Like, a lot of people said that Von Miller was washed. There was some talk that this is a guy who could be cut in the offseason earlier, and Denver kept him, and he was actually just named Defensive Player of the Month by the league. He had 4 sacks in September, and he's in a contract year. So if he keeps this up, he could be looking at getting another big contract. So far, that defense has been pretty good. Vic Fangio is dialing up all the right calls, and it's going to be really interesting to see this week how they do against Baltimore, because this is really their first big test of the year.
All right. Thank you so much. We will see you soon. And don't forget, he does work for PFF, but we're going to still call him My Sports Update for now. There you go.
Appreciate you, Chris.
Thank you so much for tuning in to the Chris Collinsworth podcast, sort of pseudo co-hosted by yours truly, George Chahrouri here at PFF. We'll be back next Thursday with another fantastic episode. Have a great week 4. Hopefully you win a little cheddar as well. We'll see you guys later.